There is a place that is spoken about only in whispers, a dark area that spawns the beginnings of urban legends, a place where anything can happen and usually does. During the light of day, it hides just outside of view, but when the sun goes down, spirits, creatures of the night, roam free, and things do go bump in the night. It is in every state and every country, and there is no escaping it, no matter how safe you feel behind your locked doors and latched windows. So we invite you to turn down the lights and turn up your radio while we join Dave Schrader and Tim Dennis, your hosts, on a journey into the darkness on the edge of town.
Hello and welcome to November. This is the best in paranormal talk radio. This is Darkness Radio. I'm your host, Dave Schrader. That guy over there is Tim Dennis. Hello, Tim.
Howdy.
We are entering November. It's an exciting time. Our first episode of Holzer Files just aired last week on the Travel Channel, our season premiere, the Phantom Hand episode. If you missed it, you should have a couple more opportunities to watch it on Travel Channel. They love to rerun this stuff. Otherwise, if you just go to the Travel Channel website, I think the first episode, you can stream it for free right off their website. So if you missed the first one, go check it out. But I've got some cool news, Tim. Tim and I discussed this. I'm going to be doing a little live after Holzer Files program that'll be airing on, I think, my Twitter, my Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, whatever I can get it to stream to, where I'll be sitting down with Shane and Cindy and maybe other special guests to talk about that episode after it airs and answer some of your questions. So we'd love for you to be a part of this. So what we've done is you're going to get, for at least the run of the Holzer Files series, the next 12 weeks, on Friday, we're going to release a bonus episode of Darkness Radio that will be the audio from that after party, if you will. So you get to hear about the Holzer Files episode, get your questions. You'll be able to hear people's questions and interactions with us on that. So it should be a good time. And it'll just be a bonus episode. Cost you guys nothing. If you don't follow along with the Holzer Files, it's not your cup of tea. You don't even have to listen to those episodes. If you do, cool. You got some more bonus in there, and we'll have some fun with the episodes, and just give you a little something extra for the next couple of months. It's just a little gift from Tim and I to you, trying to give you a little bit more content, a little bit more fun stuff to listen to. Plus, encourage you to watch the Holzer Files and then go and listen to these episodes to get a deeper dive into each one of these case files. This week, Tim, we are back. We're going to the Merchant's House in New York for the Holzer Files. Mm-hmm. I'll be real brief with it. It's just a cool story. It's a very weird family story, and this place is amazing because basically it's a time capsule. This place is legitimately a time capsule. It has, I believe, all the furniture and relics from the family, for over 100 plus years that lived there. Wow. And the stories that surround this place, some of the stories were astounding to me. Like people are visiting this Merchant's House museum. They're walking around and somebody comes up in a nicely tailored suit and starts asking them questions. Oh, you're fascinated with the family, and giving some background and information. They leave the museum and tell the docent on the way out, hey, your rep up on the second floor was fantastic. They knew all the history. It was really great. Only to find out there was no rep. There was no agent. There was no tour guide on the second floor.
Oh, weird.
So, yeah, and multiple people have witnessed this. I had an experience just interviewing one of the people on the episode, talk to them about the paranormal activity when something happens behind me that we caught on film. We capture some really compelling, very insane visual evidence on this one that I can honestly say I've never seen before. It was so just mind-numbing to me. It was a great piece of evidence, and that was one of the first episodes we shot this season. And our whole crew, we were just like, "What the hell?" So it's very cool. That's airing this Thursday on Travel Channel, and you can find us. It's 10 p.m. Eastern, 9 p.m. Central. So check out Travel Channel. Please watch those episodes. And then Friday, you'll have a brand new bonus episode of Darkness Radio where you'll get to hear behind the scenes of the Holzer Files. So let's get started, Tim. Real quickly, I've got a movie review to do.
All right.
I listened to Val Kilmer's autobiography.
Okay.
I'm trying to say audio biography, and for some reason, autobiography is coming out of me really weird. But it's a really compelling story about his life, and he actually has 2 or 3 different narrators because he has trouble speaking. He's had cancer and has tracheotomy and some issues, so his voice is not what you would recognize. But as I was watching, he was talking about some of the movies he's done since his illness, and one was a movie called The Super.
Mm-hmm.
And we were sitting around, the kids, and I wanted to watch a spooky, weird movie, a kind of a good psychological thriller. And I said, well, let me check that out. And we watched the trailer, and it looked really good. And I found it on Amazon Prime. I think it was $2.99 to rent it for 48 hours. I really like this movie, man. It is a well thought out movie. Interesting. Takes me places I didn't expect to go. So is it just a psychological thriller? Is it a serial killer? Is it a supernatural? You got to kind of tune in to check it out for yourself. But I would honestly say this was a hidden gem for me. So if you're still looking for a couple of good thriller movies to pop on, check out The Super, starring Val Kilmer. It's a few years old, and I would say out of 5 stars, 1, it sucks. 5, it's amazing. I'm going to put this at a solid 4 stars. Val Kilmer, dude, he's older. Mm-hmm. He's creepy, but he is really good in this role. Really good. And it's just a really well told story. I really enjoyed it. So check out The Super. That's the movie I'm going to give my rating on this week. I've also, the other thing I've done in this pandemic, I've revisited. I've had a subscription to DC Universe for quite a while. Mm-hmm. And I started watching the Titans TV series that they did, which was kind of an offshoot of the Teen Titans comic book series, which shows more adult versions of Robin the Boy Wonder and some of the other characters, and introduces us to Beast Boy and Raven and Starfire and a couple of these other characters. And it's really good. It's got an interesting supernatural twist to it. Great action. It is definitely not your grandpa's superhero show. This is not as violent and crazy as the Boys series, but it is definitely violent, definitely bloody, and definitely for mature audiences. But it's got some really cool supernatural twists to it, and it's another great series. I really like it. DC Universe really seems to do well with TV, and I would say out of 5 stars, I would give this a good 4.5 stars for the first season of Titans. And it's got a lot of great characters. Plus, you get to see one of the most iconic characters make a visit to the show. So that's another one that's got just a nice little twist with a supernatural flair on it, if you're interested in checking that out.
I did review one thing, and you're going to laugh when I tell you what it is. But I did I did take a look at one thing on Halloween when I was waiting for trick-or-treaters to come by. I had a few of them. I had a socially distanced Halloween this year. But believe it or not, a lot of people were complaining about It's the Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown, and the fact that it went to Apple TV, which I did. I do have Apple TV, so I watched it on It's the Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown. I watched it on Apple TV Plus. But if you stuck around Apple TV Plus, you notice that they had the Snoopy in Space shorts. Have you seen those?
No, I haven't.
You haven't? Okay. So I did watch the entire, it's like 12 episodes of Snoopy in Space. And you're gonna kind of, and I heard you chuckle when I said Snoopy in Space. But it's kind of an interesting premise, and they are newer, and you kind of cringe if you're a fan of the old Peanuts cartoons, and the wonderful Vince Guaraldi music that's behind it really sets the tone for the old Peanuts cartoons, of course. And it really, in modern day, they did a fantastic job with it. They're really good. And essentially the premise is that Snoopy gets kind of the bug to want to become an astronaut. And I know it sounds kind of like a silly premise, but he gets the bug to want to become an astronaut, and he sends off his application to NASA to want to become an astronaut, and they send him back a rejection letter. But when they send him back this rejection letter, he gets passes for the whole gang to go to Johnson Space Center. So as they go to Johnson Space Center, he decides he's going to sneak into astronaut training. And when he does so, he puts on the really bad mustache.
Yes. And the convincing I'm a human mustache. Yeah.
Yeah. The one that Needles, his cousin, wears. So I bet you there's a really out there reference. And he has Woodstock with him as well. So the two of them sneak in, and he completes the training, under his mustache, and actually gets selected to go to the ISS to do his first mission. Well, he gets found out. There's this. Okay, this is the creepy part, which I don't know that I agree with, but hey, I'll go along with it. There's this kind of sentient AI computer that approves him for his training and puts him through the training. And that's the part I'm creeped out about. And then assigns him his first mission to the ISS. And this little sentient AI computer is the new character that kind of goes along with Snoopy in Woodstock on these different missions that they go on in Snoopy in Space. But it's really quite cute. They go from the ISS, and then he gets a second mission to go to the moon. And you learn about all the different parts of the galaxy through this 12-part series. And it's really quite good. And the music is just as good as Vince Guaraldi's background music or jazz music that was put in the original cartoons.
So for this little series, Snoopy Goes to Space, 1 sucks, 5 amazing. Where would you put it?
I put it at a 5. I loved it.
Wow. Now rating the weed you must have been smoking to sit there and watch 12 episodes. I'm guessing that was a 7 on a scale.
No. You know what? These little vignettes are only about 8 to 9 minutes long, which is great for kids these days because, and again, I'm not the old man in the room who's pooping on everything, but
Could you have sounded any more Minnesotan pooping?
Well, I'm trying not to swear here, but the fact of the matter is that kids these days don't have long attention spans, and they really don't. I've noticed too, when you sit younger generations in front of stuff like It's the Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown, they tend to get up and leave the room. They really don't.
Yeah.
They really aren't into it like we were into it.
God, I loved watching that every year. Thanksgiving, then I'd be counting down the days till the Thanksgiving episode, and then Christmas, and even the crappy Valentine's Day one.
Yeah.
I miss those.
But they aren't into it as much as we were into it. So these little vignettes are only maybe 8-9 minutes long, and they really are action packed, and they keep your interest, and they move quickly, and they're really set up so that kids are into it. So I liked it. It really moved along. The story was good, and they're quick hits, and they keep you entertained and informed and educated as well. So they were 5 out of 5 for me.
Very cool. Well, since we're doing these reviews and kind of unconventional, I know people are going to think I got a horse in this race, so that's why I'm going to do this. But I want to review Bruce Springsteen's brand new album, Letter to You.
Okay.
It is his newest album. I think it's like his 20th or 25th studio album. I have to look it up again. I'm sorry that shows you. I wish I had more immediate recall for these things. But this album, to me, is really amazing. And I think people in the supernatural realm are going to really enjoy it because it's really a reflective look at life, mortality, and what comes next. And he's got songs on there, 1 Minute You're Here, Letter to You, Burn and Train, Janie Needs a Shooter, Last Man Standing, which is really, his first band, the Castiles. He's the last surviving member of that band now. He also has a really great song I just was blindsided by called The Power of Prayer, which, has been huge on our show for years. Mm-hmm. House of 1,000 Guitars, Rainmaker, If I Was the Priest, and then, of course, Ghosts, Song for Orphans, and I'll See You in My Dreams. It feels like he has really tapped into his kind of metaphysical and spiritual side in this album. And although it is not like a Born in the USA anthem kind of album, it is definitely a great return to the E Street Band sound. They recorded this live, which is something that they haven't done. He says almost never. There's been one or two songs here and there they've done, not counting the live concert albums, but they did this over a period of like 4 or 5 days and recorded this album, and it is really a great album. And I know everybody says, well, Schrader, you're a huge Springsteen fan. Hey, there have been some albums I'm not as keen on, Ghost of Tom Joad being one of them. This album, I think, is really great, and I would give it a solid 5 stars. So, again, if you want a little insight into what I like and the music that turns my crank and why, go listen to just the lyrics of these songs. And if you have Amazon Music, you should be able to listen to the albums. I think his albums are always up there for free to listen to. You don't even have to buy them; just tune in and listen to the album. But great stuff on there. And that's out and available right now. I think it just came out on October 23rd. So I've got my double album gatefold vinyl version with the special colored vinyl. And it's just really, dude, it set me apart. I love this album. Cool. Great album.
Very cool.
That's going on. Something else I want to mention. I know we have listeners all over the world, and we've done things like our Christmas Angels program where we've adopted a couple of families that were in need. And it's been a few years since we've done that because it started to get a little weird vetting some of these families. Mm-hmm. But we've done that. We've raised money for Second Harvest Heartland. We've done other things. I know not everybody has money right now. There may not be in a position to be able to donate, but I have mentioned from time to time, if you're lonely and maybe this pandemic's hitting you in a different way and you just feel isolated and cut off, you can reach out to me. And I received a really heartfelt email from a listener, Daryl. And I told him I would be happy to share this and his email with listeners. Maybe he could make some new pen pals to help kind of take him out of this loneliness. A recent interview, I ended talking about being lonely. And he says, my being alone started way before the pandemic. On March 27th, 2017, my wife of 17 years, we had been together for 20, was killed in a car accident. We were getting ready to move on April 1st to a nice old remodeled home in Old Naples, Florida, right on the canal, about a quarter mile from the Gulf. I'm on disability, so when this happened, I couldn't afford that house. I ended up having to move to a 1-bedroom apartment in a complex that is not considered a very nice or safe place to live. For an example, the police put up a notice board just outside the entrance to tell people to remember to lock your vehicle and to keep your doors and windows locked at all times. About me being alone, I have been alone in my apartment since I moved in on June 1st of 2017. He's been alone for 3.5 years. Jeez. The only time that I really have any contact is when I go to the doctor to get my pain meds every month and have to go to get groceries. My stepkids live on Marco Island, about 25 miles away, and they never come or bring my 6 grandkids to see me. I have anxiety attacks if I try to go to the island because that's where my wife was killed. To go to my stepdaughter's house, I have to drive over the actual accident site. We lived on the island for almost 15 years until she lost her job when the company closed that she was working with. I have trouble going down there because first I lost my health, then I lost my job due to my disability. When she lost her job, we lost our home that we had built. We lived next door to her son and 4 of our grandkids for 12 years. We taught every one of them to swim in our pool. She was actually a nanny to these kids and driving them to school when the accident happened. Now I just spend my day with my dog, Peanut, watching TV. I'm the only English-speaking person living in my building, so I feel very isolated. I believe that I'm a borderline agoraphobic because I hate to go outside unless I absolutely have to, and I may go 3 or 4 days without even looking out. I just feel so alone all the time. Since the pandemic, I've gotten worse. Right now, I'm crying so hard, I can barely see the screen. I just wanted to tell my story to someone, and when you mentioned that it just touched me that I should contact you. Thanks again for your time. I know you're busy, and this was a long, rambling message. Thanks again, and that comes from Daryl. I know there are more people like that out there that feel isolated and alone. I can't guarantee you'll make lifelong friends, but if you are interested in emailing Daryl, and would like to be a friend to him, or if you're isolated and alone yourself and would like us to kind of put your name out there for this email chain and hopefully make some new friends, just reach out to me at dave@darknessradio.com. I'll put you in touch with Daryl, or I'll try to put other people in touch with you so that you can have somebody to correspond with. We know it's a tough time. 2020 has been brutal on a lot of people, and especially with the isolation factor. I mean, I'm lucky. I've got my family around me in the home, but I still feel that isolation a lot of times because I'm not able to go out and be with my buddies and friends and do things in a social setting. Even when we were out filming the show, we would go on set, film the show, go back to our rooms, and we had to stay isolated from one another. So I'm a social butterfly, and I like to be around people, and not having gone to all these conventions this year, it feels weird and off. So if you're in that position, don't feel alone. You're not. There are people out there just like you, and let's get together. Let's piece people together. So again, if you're interested in emailing Daryl, just email me. I'll give you his email address, and you can follow up. Just put in the subject line, Friend of Darkness Radio, and put it out there so that he knows that you're writing because you're a friend and you also love the paranormal. So that's just my request to you. And again, I want to help anybody else out there that might feel lonely and get this email chain going. So, sorry, a little emotional on it. It just breaks my kind of heart to know people are feeling that alone during these times. Yeah. So I want to make sure that nobody is left behind. This isn't the time for that. We have so much derision in the world as it is. Let's come together on things like this and be friends. So, with that said, shall we start dipping into some news, Mr. Dennis?
Yeah, let's do that.
He's back, Tim. He wants to be seen. Perhaps she wants to be seen. There's no telling at this point, but another startling image of a large creature inhabiting the depths of Loch Ness have been captured on sonar. It follows the revelations last month of what's considered to be the most compelling and startling evidence of the existence of a Loch Ness monster after an unusual recording more than 500 feet below its cold surface. But now another contact with a large creature just above the 607-foot loch bottom was recorded on October 11th. It has again left experts stunned. Excited by the recording, leading sonar expert Craig Wallace said he was willing to come to Loch Ness with sophisticated sonar equipment to try and find out what's inhabiting the depths. Mr. Wallace, marine robotics senior applications specialists with Kongsberg Maritime AS, has surveyed Loch Ness about a half a dozen times. 4 years ago, using groundbreaking sonar and camera equipment, he famously detected and discovered the lost model of Nessie, which had been used during the filming of 1970's The Private Life of Sherlock Holmes. Of the latest images, he said, they are very curious. There are, of course, large, clear, and distinct contacts, all strangely near to the loch bed. It is very well known that Loch Ness has been subject to several excursions with sonar to find Nessie, but the technology used, although cutting edge at the time, was designed for bottom mapping operations. Hence, it would try to track the seafloor and not necessarily find mid-column targets. Modern technology employs new techniques whereby the entire water column is mapped accurately, and perhaps in the future we'll start to see a program to capture this data correctly in Loch Ness. While we would never rule out Nessie's existence, as our swath of coverage at any one time would be too small, perhaps the extra scientific data would justify the venture. If any groups would be willing to sponsor the attempt, I would love the opportunity to attend with these types of sonar. It is hard to tell if it's a single creature or a large shoal of fish. School, I think, is what maybe shoal is the word, on SHOAL. Which in itself would be unusual for Loch Ness. You don't normally find such a thing in the loch, and especially not that far down. These fascinating images are genuine and unexplained contacts that would merit further investigation of the loch by more sophisticated sonar. The latest images were again captured by Cruise Loch Ness, run by Ronald Mackenzie, and were a mile apart off Invermoderson. The previous startling contact on September 30th was also described as 100% genuine by Mr. Wallace. The sonar manufacturers have now told Mr. McKenzie that the contact is a single, animate object, estimated to be between 15 to 20 feet long. Initially, Mr. McKenzie thought it was 32 feet long. It was captured hovering 62 feet above the bottom. Mr. McKenzie, 49, who has worked on the lock for more than 30 years, said the second contact was 1 mile southwest of the very first contact. I would welcome Mr. Wallace bringing his equipment, and we will take him out to try and find what's going on, because I have no idea. I just wonder if it's due to lockdown. There's been nothing moving, no boats on the surface of that lock, and I wonder if that's encouraged it to move about. I just don't know. I can't explain it. I was reluctant to even make it public. I sent the first images to the sonar manufacturer, who has told me the contact was 15 to 20 feet long and a single creature. It is too big to be a salmon, and at that depth, there is no way it's a very large salmon. It could be something that has come into the loch. I've spent more time on Loch Ness than anybody I know, and I can't explain why suddenly we are getting these sonar contacts all of a sudden. It's just incredible. I honestly think it's a big fish of some sort, known or unknown to the loch. I've been over the area for decades, tens of thousands of times. Now we have two similar contacts and in the middle of the loch. The latest looks the same. I have no idea what it is. Nessie expert Steve Feltham, who has set a world record for the longest vigil of looking for the Loch Ness Monster, says Mr. McKenzie's sonar images are the most compelling evidence of the existence of this legendary creature. These latest images help put together the most compelling case for a big creature swimming around Loch Ness, he said. All the contacts are near the bottom or in the first 100 feet up. It's a game changer and first indisputable sighting of something very big and unexpected that's in there. It's not explainable by any known phenomena in Loch Ness, and that's why I've sat and waited here all these years. We've had so many rubbish sightings over the years of boat wakes or logs, but this is in a league all its own. I'm not keen on the idea that it could be a sturgeon, but it might be a Wells catfish. It is possible. I would think that there are very few of them, though. If there's been a small population, we could be looking for the last one left. We don't know how long they live for. At least we know there is this one, and it would be nice to find out before it's too late, because it seems to inhabit the bottom and rarely comes to the surface. So there's been a lot of Loch Ness Monster sightings this year, Tim.
Yeah, there have more than usual.
2020 has been weird, but it seems to really kind of want to, I don't know, the Loch Ness Monster seems to want to be seen. That picture earlier this year was really compelling to me. That picture where it breached the water surface and that guy's got a close-up of it, that is huge.
Yeah.
Well, since we're talking strange animal encounters, here's a really weird piece of news that came to me by way of Parma, Ohio. WOIO, Tim.
Why?
One goat. Yeah, WOIO. One goat was found dead. Another goat and a sheep had to be euthanized at a Stearns homestead Sunday morning after an apparent possible attack. Now, let's face it, Tim. Farm animals, they get attacked. Coyotes, mountain lions, rogue wolves, things like that have been known to make their way in.
Mm-hmm.
Stearns Homestead unexpectedly found Bert, a goat, dead in the goat pasture Sunday morning. They also had to put down Moose, another goat, and Billy, a sheep, after they were found to be severely injured, according to a Facebook post. The veterinarian arrived within the hour and recommended that both be euthanized. Other goats and sheep are also injured, but the vet felt confident that they will pull through. The farm said police were notified, and the crime unit, along with two policemen, walked the property to try to determine what happened. Without an autopsy, the farm said, it cannot be determined if they were shot with a gun, but so far, no bullet casings have been found. What sets this apart from just a normal animal attack? Several puncture wounds were found on several goats and sheep, the farm said. While a wild animal attack has not been eliminated, it seems unlikely an animal would attack all the goats and sheep, yet the little goats were unharmed. Any information leading to the arrest and conviction of criminal activity could be eligible for up to a $5,000 reward, the farm said, offered as part of their Farm Bureau membership. So how strange is that? These strange puncture wounds that they can't identify. They're confident is most likely not an animal attack of any sort, but they can't determine exactly what's going on.
Very weird.
Isn't it cool?
Yeah, cool, but
cool, but not. I mean, it just certainly puts you right back in that chupacabra or alien abduction kind of mindset.
Yeah.
Hey, I also want to encourage people. I'm starting to get some stories worthy of theater of the mind treatment, Tim.
Yeah.
So email me your stories. Well, what does theater of the mind mean, Dave? Well, what it means is you've written it as a narrative. You're giving us something to work with. Instead of just saying, oh, I walked down the street and saw this. Talk to me. I walked down the street. It was a windy afternoon. You could hear the sound of the gravel crunching beneath my feet, when suddenly, and just be descriptive in a nature. It doesn't have to be long, 2 to 3 pages long to encapsulate your story. We can do shorter if it's a good, compelling story and well written. Break it up into paragraphs so it's easy to read. Hit that spell check button. That's all I'm asking. And we will create some more Theater of the Minds. For those of you that don't know what a Theater of the Mind episode is, go back a couple weeks because we played one so that you could hear it again. And what they are is your stories, but we do them in a more dramatic flair with sound effects and music and have a little bit of fun with it. And we will get back to them if we have enough stories coming in. So far, I think I've got enough for about 4 new Theater of the Minds. We'll start with those in January. So just keep sending them in. The more we get, the more we can produce and decide how many we can release a month of Theater of the Mind. The Theater of the Mind episodes will air during our Wednesday programs when we do Supernatural News and Parashare. So bear that in mind. I also want to mention, last week we ended up doing 2 interview shows because we were given a great opportunity, to talk to the cast of the Holzer Files on last Thursday, the night of the season 2 premiere, but on Wednesday, given the opportunity to talk about the ghostwriter case. We were told that if we wanted this very rare interview follow-up, we had to do it before Halloween, and that was the only date that we had open. So instead of doing Supernatural News, we elected to go this way with it, and we hope you enjoy that. And from time to time, you'll be okay with us switching things up a little bit in order to accommodate special guests. Let's go to an email, shall we, Tim?
Sure.
Hi, Dave and Tim.
Hi.
Love the podcast. I'm new to the show. I'm also a big fan of both the Holzer Files and Paranormal Night Shift. Wow, Tim. I think this is your first fan letter to Paranormal Night Shift. At least to me. As much as I enjoy the paranormal subject, I have no desire to participate, but you guys give the subject such a great spin on each subject. I'm interested in angels, and I think it could be a great show. Voodoo is another subject that might make a good show. There must be something wrong with me. I'm the most unsensitive person. I've never had a real experience. I'm not asking for one, but it's curious. Why are some people so sensitive and others so out of tune? I really appreciate your show and enjoy your tone and inquiring mind. Sincerely, Chef Jan. Or maybe it's Chef Jan. I'm not sure. I don't want to, I could assume it's Jan because it's Jan, but the full email looks like it could be a more fancy name. Jan.
Yeah.
Not answer your question. First of all, we've done shows on angels. We'll do more shows on angels. We've done shows on voodoo, and I'm sure we'll do more shows on voodoo. Why are some people sensitive and others are not, or out of tune, as you put it? I don't know that that's necessarily the case, but if it's something that's not a focus point for you, you may not be noticing things that others that are more fascinated might be. Just like I'm maybe not as interested in the Civil War, and Tim may be, and we may go out and he may be triggered and, oh, look at that. That's this. This is it, because he's attuned to look for those. I'm attuned to look for aspects of the supernatural. I might notice the billboard up ahead that says Bigfoot Museum 100 yards ahead, where he might notice Civil War Museum 4 miles ahead, because that's something that triggers our interest. So I think that that's the same with the paranormal. When you have an interest in something and it's an active interest, I think you begin to notice them more. You begin to notice things because you're putting your mindset into that. Now, does that mean you can have some false positives? Of course. Does it mean I've been wrong investigating? Tim's been wrong investigating? Sure, we're human. We're fallible, but we learn from those mistakes and we try to move forward on them. So if you're really interested, even though you're not looking for an experience per se, if you are aware and open and attuned to your situations, and you're not a mindless zombie staring at your phone in your hand like most people, you might start noticing things. And it's okay, nothing to be afraid of. It's I think it's more normal than it is paranormal. Truthfully, I'm starting to think more of this stuff is stuff that's around us all the time. We just have to learn to accept it and start to figure out how to work with it. And I think that's going to be the next evolution of man, is once we're able to figure out how to unlock these abilities and senses. So that's my take on it.
If I can add to it, I think also there's a bit of a difference between people who are more grounded to this earth and people who tend to be a little bit more spiritual. And there's that line there. You have people who are more, when I say grounded to this earth, I mean they're more, I don't know, let's just say they enjoy the fruits of this earth a little bit more. They like their technology a little bit more. They're more grounded to the 3D. They need more proof. They like technology. They like TV. They like sports. They like whatever. Right. They tend to like the earth stuff, that they're more in the here and now, and the tangible. Thank you, Dave.
Right. As opposed to the esoteric or the ethereal, I guess.
Exactly. Right. And I think the people who are more into the esoteric are probably more attuned to that realm and pick things up quicker. And the people who are more into the tangible probably don't receive that stuff as easily. So that's just my take.
Very cool. All right. One more quick email before a break. Hello there and happy Halloween. My first interest in the paranormal began when I was 12 years old. The main reason was the book Ghosts of the Golden West by Hans Holzer, of course. Some 50 years later, it's thrilling to see your show on TV. Thank you. Whaley House has always been a dream destination for me, and I've been there many times and have had several experiences. The first was in the old courtroom in the 70s. We were standing in the very front of the courtroom, and the docent had just begun her talk when suddenly the restraining chain started swinging and hit me across the legs. The folks around me were quite startled and backed away. The docent said that such events, though are rare, were not unusual. The next time was about 5 years ago. My cousin was going home to England and leaving from San Diego International. We decided to go and visit the Whaley House prior to her departure. It was a weekday, so we were able to just park right in front and go in. I showed her the backyard where poor Violet had ended her life. Then we went back in and went upstairs. When we came down, there were two young women standing there, and they were quite surprised to see us. They explained that there was an entrance fee. We had not seen anyone throughout our entire visit. Since we had to depart, they just let us go. As we were leaving, I put my hand against the brick wall and said to my cousin, "This is so much spirit energy here." With that, my hand started burning. My palm turned bright red and became quite painful. My cousin went to the car and got some spray for my hand, and the pain subsided, but remained pretty red. Thank you for your wonderful show and making folks aware of Hans Holzer. He was truly an innovator of paranormal study. I rewatched the Whaley House episode the other day when you were shoved, and I was burned. Very odd indeed. Regards, and that comes from Diana Wheeler. Thank you, Diana Wheeler. We appreciate you watching the Holzer Files every Thursday on Travel Channel, and for tuning in to the best in paranormal talk radio. You're listening to Darkness Radio. We're back. You're listening to Darkness Radio. Guinness World Record for world's largest online seance set at historic Warwick site, Tim. The record attempt took place over the past weekend. A Guinness World Records for the world's largest online seance has been set at one of Warwick's historic properties. Last Sunday, November 1st, UK Haunted and Penny West, the Wiccan Witch, used Guy's Cliff House for the setting for TV channel Riley's Guinness World Record attempt. Guy Cliff is a 5th century site off Coventry Road, which is owned by the Freemasons of Guy's Cliff. The site has a rich history, from being home to the Guy of Warwick to being a hospital in World War I. Really celebrated that spooky season by inviting paranormal fans to take part in a live seance hosted on the channel's Facebook page. It took place in the cellar at Guy's Cliff House, which sits over the old chapel. The seance was also held to celebrate the channel's Halloween season of programs called 13 Nights of Fright. 4 supernatural experts, including a Wiccan witch, guided viewers on the experience as they reached out to the spirits. The team at Riley said the seance topped more than 9,000 live viewers. That smashed the viewing figures needed to enter the record by over 5 times. The channel says it now holds the Guinness World Records title for most viewers of a seance live stream on Facebook. Leading the proceedings was the UK Haunted team, Alex Dugan and Mickey York. UK Haunted are a duo of paranormal investigators who travel all over the UK to capture evidence of the paranormal, using innovative equipment, experiments, and more scientific approach to support their findings. UK Haunted was supported on the night by paranormal enthusiast and podcaster Nick Stepani and Penny West, the Wiccan Witch. Penny has undertaken many investigations on both personal and professional properties and says she can cleanse properties of imbalances and restore harmony. The seance involved traditional practices such as encouraging spirits to affect those around the table. Throughout the seance, Penny said she repeatedly experienced the feeling of hands touching her hair, and the group heard a number of mysterious knocking sounds and creaking doors. The night included more scientific measures too, including a scalar energy generator and spirit box that enables the spirits to try to communicate. Through this, the group said they heard the message of watch and wait spoken through the radio signals, which they asked the energies in the room to explain further. Alex Dugan from UK Haunted said, "We've reached out to the spiritual world many times before, but we've never been more excited than this time, in which we set a Guinness World Records title. Using the best technology, including a scalar generator to give the spirits energy to communicate, which has never been done before in the paranormal field, we were able to offer a safe and respectful seance to the largest audience ever. We hope the audience enjoyed it as much as we did." Faye Robson-Stokes, Director of Marketing and Communications at Riley, said, "At Riley, we love getting into the spirit of Halloween with our viewers. This year, we are thrilled to offer fans their own exciting seance experience at home, as well as the chance to be Guinness World Record breakers." So what if you're opening your own home up to some kind of spiritual portal because you've got the intent of 9,000 people focused on it? This is gonna seem shallow, but my thought is it's only 9,000. That's the world record. For an online seance, yeah, I would think that's pretty good. It's hard to get a good streaming audience for something that people are going to sit down and follow through on. I give them a lot of credit. Yeah, it's true, I guess. With the amount of, I guess everybody always talks up their numbers like, oh, I had 1 million people listening. No, you didn't. But yeah, I don't know. I guess I don't know why that shocks me, but I guess I keep that number keeps bouncing in my head. But yeah, I know what you're talking about. If you have 9,000 people and that type of intention, yeah, you could open a hell of a portal there in your home, couldn't you? Right. Well, you got all these people trying to make communication, all focused on that. Yeesh. Well, speaking of that, Friday the 13th is coming up, Tim. Yeah, it is. And the real Mary King's Close to broadcast its first ever live paranormal investigation. I've been there. It's pretty cool. The real Mary King's Close is to broadcast its first ever live interactive paranormal investigation next week. That'll take place on Friday, November 13th at 8 p.m. The 5-star attraction located underneath the Royal Mile teams up with Scottish Paranormal to conduct the investigation that will take place in the uniquely preserved 17th century streets. Scottish Paranormal has investigated claims of unearthly occurrences across Scotland for the past 15 years. The team will use established investigative tools and focus on real stories backed up by the attraction's own historic research. They will carry out a series of experiments in the rooms of the close where paranormal activity has previously been reported. This includes the use of scientific tools such as live EVP and Frank's box scanning to pick out coherent words in the scanning of audio waves, along with electromagnetic, temperature, and indication devices. The talented guides of the attraction will be providing the historic background for the investigation, delving into Edinburgh's darkest tales. Paul Nixon, general manager of the Real Mary King's Close, said, "We're approaching this experiment with a mixture of excitement and genuine curiosity. The Real Mary King's Close has attracted 2.75 million visitors to its fascinating underground streets in the last 17 years. We know there's an appetite from people to find out more about the history of the site and the many paranormal experiences that have been reported. People from all around the world can tune in and watch it all unfold before their eyes. We're looking forward to sharing this experiment with the public for the very first time." Ryan O'Neill from Scottish Paranormal said, "The Real Mary King's Close is renowned in the paranormal field of research as one of the most haunted locations in the world. One of the main areas we'll focus on during the investigation is audio capture, and in particular, electronic voice phenomena. This is where we ask specific questions relating to the location, its history, and the characters associated with each area, in the hope of gaining a reply that may not be heard out loud, but will etch itself into the device and can be heard upon playback. The virtual event is priced at just £13 and 13 pence. I guess, is that how you say it, Tim?
Yeah.
And will last for an hour and 45 minutes. That's not bad. $13.
No.
I think £13 in American money comes to $2,460, but I'm not sure.
You got it.
Tickets can be purchased on the Real Mary King's Close website. But Dave, where is it? How do I find that? What do we do? Would you people settle down? If you haven't learned by now, we take care of you. Just go to darknessradio.com, click on the news tab, and under that news tab, you're going to see pictures that we may have talked about, articles that we may have discussed that have a link or important video or photographic evidence for you to go check. So it'll be right there. Why, Tim? Because I love these people.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, I do. I don't know if you know that.
I've heard rumors. Yeah. Rumors.
Since we're talking about the 13th, Tim, Blumhouse still really wants to reboot Friday the 13th.
Yeah, you've hit a bunch of home runs, much like Barry Bonds, but eventually you get caught with steroids. Don't
you think that's the problem? See, Blumhouse producer Jason Blum wants to reboot the Friday the 13th movies. Blum's company has established itself as one of the biggest names in the horror genre, overwhelmingly dominating the industry since its first major release back in 2009 with Paranormal Activity. That went on to earn nearly $200 million worldwide. Blumhouse has since produced an array of low-budget horror films that are box office hits, and even more poignant ones such as Split and Get Out, the latter earning 4 Oscar nominations in 2018, including Best Picture. Blumhouse successes like Paranormal Activity, Insidious, and The Purge have become some of the most iconic horror franchises of the 21st century, which is why it's no surprise Blum wants to have his own take on the past horror icons. So back in 2018, Jason Blum first revealed that he would be interested in tackling the Friday the 13th movies. It wouldn't be the first slasher franchise he's rebooted either. He helped bring back Michael Myers in 2018's Halloween, the direct sequel to the original 1978 film. That movie picks up right at the end of the first movie, forgetting about 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8, and H2O, and anyone that came after that.
Yeah.
The new Halloween was a direct sequel to the very first Halloween. And that reboot film started a new timeline with Jamie Lee Curtis reprising her iconic role from the films as Laurie Strode, and even returning creator John Carpenter. Blumhouse reboot generally pleased fans and critics and has already spawned not one, but 2 sequels, Halloween Kills and Halloween Ends. The 12th and 13th films in the series are scheduled for release over the next 2 years. Despite his involvement with the Halloween series, Friday the 13th is not off the table yet for Blumhouse. Speaking with Cinepop again, Blum confirms that he is still interested in rebooting the Friday the 13th franchise. When asked what franchise he would like to take on next following his latest sequel reboot film, The Craft Legacy, he had a simple answer. I'd love to do Friday the 13th. I'd do it as a movie, he said. Really, as a movie? People think it was going to be a cartoon? What kind of weird clarification is that?
Broadway show.
Yeah. Jason, coming at you with a knife. Jason, he's going to terminate your life. You better not run. You better not hide. It's Jason, and he's still alive. Thank you, everybody. Since the film's first release in 1980, Friday the 13th has spawned dozens of sequels that have placed the hockey mask-wearing Jason Voorhees in various situations, including a crossover battle with Freddy Krueger and even going to outer space. Grossing over $529 million worldwide, Friday the 13th was the highest-grossing horror franchise until the release of the Halloween reboot. The franchise was a cornerstone for campy slasher horror movies, maintaining a massive fan base despite always being panned by critics. However, it's been over a decade since a Friday the 13th film was made, the last one being Michael Bay's 2009 reboot, which I enjoyed. Since Bay's film, there have been multiple attempts to produce another Friday the 13th, but legal disputes over the film's series rights makes a reboot unlikely for the time being. Blumhouse successfully rebooted Halloween, proving that the company could do a good job in bringing back Friday the 13th. The company has produced great films in the past decade, and it'd be interesting to see what they could do with Jason's story. I don't think so. Here's the deal. Blumhouse, you guys are so good at what you do. Why not just create a new iconic killer?
That would be the ultimate scenario. I think, they got lucky with Halloween. The thing with Blumhouse is that they're very good at doing original material, and the trap is going back and reaching for beloved characters and trying to do something new with them, because you have sentimental memories of these characters and you have an idea of what they're supposed to be. And anytime you try to do something new or reboot something, you're setting yourself up for failure.
Yeah. I don't know. I just listen, I understand there's some tried and trues. Let's just continue the series, wrap it up with the 13th episode of Friday the 13th, just complete 13 movies, come up with some fun, unique. See, people don't like Jason X, Jason 10. I liked it. I liked that they put him in outer space. I liked seeing him in the future. I just thought that was a clever, fun, dopey, the sci-fi thriller horror movie nerd in me nerdgasmed with that movie. I thought it was great. I enjoyed Freddy versus Jason.
Yeah.
I thought it was a cool tie.
Yeah.
I thought it was a quirky, fun. The story was a little weak, but it really did what it wanted it to do, was have these two psychopaths face off against each other.
Right.
So I've liked when they've kind of taken stories out of the context. I'd love to see them kind of, what if the government grabbed up all of these killers, found a way to drag Freddy in from the dream realm, grabbed Jason, grabbed Michael, grabbed the Bloody Valentine killer, all of these iconic slayers, and then dropped them in as killing operatives.
Like a Suicide Squad.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
Wouldn't that be kind of cool to see? You drop them all off in the middle of, some horrible fake country that you've created that's a new threat to America. And we're just unleashing nightmares on them. Yeah,
or drop them in the middle of Afghanistan or something, and you set them against a regime or something.
Would be fun?
Yeah.
What would really be fun is you see that, say, and I'm just going to throw this out there. We attack Japan with these monsters, right?
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of it, they go into the Ghost Protocol, where they send to America the Grudge, Yuan, all of the Ring, all of their versions of the monsters come to America to start attacking us through our electronic devices. So it comes like this monster war.
So it's a big spy game with everybody's monsters.
With creepy ghosts and monsters. I'm just thinking outside the box, but I love weird stuff like that. I wouldn't mind seeing Friday the 13th continue in a way? I mean, I don't think they need to reboot it. Why can't they just continue the story? But again, why not just do what you're doing and create compelling Conjuring universe stories? How about dipping into the stories of Hans Holzer? Some of his, and I'm not, again, pitching this because it'd take more shine off of our TV show, actually, but Holzer's got some freaking creepy-ass stories to deal with.
Yeah, he does, yeah.
And he had such an interesting and unique grouping of people around him. I think it could be really compelling. You know, you could investigate and maybe not even just make it one case. What if it's one right after the other? If he's tackling 2 or 3 stories in each movie, I think there's plenty of room to create brand new content like that and make it interesting.
I think so too. There's such a rich history to Hans Holzer that I don't know why somebody hasn't picked that up, especially right after the Conjuring movies, why they didn't, piggyback off of that.
I'd like to see Tom Hiddleston play young Hans Holzer.
Yes. Yeah, he'd be perfect.
Yeah, wouldn't he be kind of a cool one?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
That's my take on it. I could be wrong. Okay. Hey, Dave. Tim, you asked for listeners to respond to the tape played at the end of your show a few weeks back. I want you to know I respect the particular kind of common sense you and Tim share weekly. My response here is a sincere effort to provide feedback. This is either total bullshit or you are testing out the idea for a new show to see how much the suckers in the audience will gulp down. If it is the latter, see you around campus. Please be careful, Dave, how you handle this. This tape was clearly given to you in order to use the hard-earned credibility you and Tim have developed over more than 15 years, because the source has neither visibility nor credibility. This tape offers just another GD conspiracy theory. Each theory seems designed to offer headlines but no credible source information. Palladians, Darkos, Mike Love, hard to tell the players without a program. Basic college journalism requires the public know the who, what, where, when, why, and if you know it, how of each story. This tape offers only one, the December 21st date, as an essential credibility element. My guess is December 21st will come and go. The date changed because the Darkos assigned some key peaceful alien at the last minute. Astrology seems to be the basis for the predictions concerning the alleged great solar flash and the end of the 25,925-year cycle impacting the history of planet Earth. Like all good baseless conspiracies, this is a pretty weak foundation for something that professes a fifth dimension spiritual rebirth, whatever it is. Oh, yeah. There is the little thing about the total change in character of the entire Earth's population thanks to the White Dragon Society, the White Hats, the Great White Brotherhood. The emphasis on white shows either a lack of color creativity or lends itself easily to racist forces already plaguing our nation, forces behind the source of unproven rumors offered by the likes of QAnon. Since Mr. Floyd's murder, no one in their right mind would describe themselves as a member of white anything. These efforts are just another way to mislead people by implying slight variance in concept definitions. Truth, justice, and equality quickly becoming fake words, really meaning nothing or anything, depending on the self-serving sociopath during the defining. These principles die a little each time unproven conspiracy verbiage clouds our common understanding. Oh yeah, hope they get back to you when they know the outcome of the Delta Light Force efforts during Operation Pandora, but don't hold your breath. Warmest regards, and that comes from Len in Fullerton, California. So let's address one thing at the beginning here. Either this is total BS or you're testing out the idea of a new show to see how much the suckers in your audience will gulp down. We would never do that. We did it for just this reason. It was something that somebody we like and respect found fascinating enough with us to share. And there is a key date. Now, you're right. We've heard many key dates thrown out that never come to fruition. But let's talk about it beforehand. That's all I said. Let's listen to this, see what's said. There's a lot of weird stuff going on in the world right now. A lot of things seem on the precipice of full disclosure. This isn't trying to see what you'll swallow. It's trying to see what kind of people like you will step up and what thought you put into these efforts and ideas. You placed out a very well thought out, interesting scenario and concept. We're not shooting it down. But the whole concept of the show is to go outside of the normal thinking, of going outside of normal belief systems, not for shunning people or making them feel stupid or ignorant for their beliefs, but in posing questions. What is this? What could this mean? What does it mean to you? That's all we ask. And that's why we played the audio. I've gotten many responses, some like yours, very harsh and deliberate, which I respect. Some felt like their eyes were open to something. Now, it's real easy for you to sit back and say, oh, these are suckers. But if it resonates with them, I'm just as interested why it resonates with them as to why it does not with you. And I think there's important information that can be gleaned from both sides of that coin. So we'll continue to present strange things, especially from people we like and enjoy and respect, who think there's something to this. And, I'm interested in what other people think on this. So thank you again for weighing in and having the passion and forethought to write out a well-defined email instead of just, you guys are assholes and how dare you threaten our intelligence, because that would have gone nowhere. But I really enjoyed your email. And we did get a couple of those more angry emails, Tim, that I won't give notice to, simply because they didn't take time to give me a well-thought-out narrative and concept behind what they were stating. It was just calling names and pointing fingers, which does nobody any good.
Yeah, true.
So thank you, Len. We appreciate it. I really mean that. We appreciate when you spend some time putting effort into a thought process like that and taking us to the next level. Now, speaking of that, Tim, we do have a weird story that came out on October 27th. Apophis, the god of chaos, the asteroid, is speeding up. It's now increasing the likelihood of hitting Earth on my 101st birthday.
On your 101st birthday, you say?
Uh-huh. The Apophis asteroid, named after the god of chaos, is getting pushed around by sunlight. And it's getting faster as it's heading towards Earth. According to the researchers at the University of Hawaii's Institute of Astronomy, it is under the influence of the Yarkovsky effect. This is when the asteroid speeds up because its thermal radiation is no longer uniform. Simply put, some parts of the asteroid are heating up faster than other parts. Before the detection of this effect, Apophis, which is the size of 3 football fields, was just likely to whiz past Earth in 2068. However, according to this article, the impact of the Yarkovsky acceleration means that there is a possibility and probability that the massive asteroid may crash into the planet when it rolls around in 50 years. The potential impact would be the equivalent of 880 million tons of TNT exploding simultaneously. This would make it 65,000 times more destructive than Hiroshima nuclear disaster.
Jeez.
Yeah. So because it's heating up, it may be getting a lot closer to Earth, may even impact with the Earth. This happens when sunlight heats up the day side of the asteroid, and after the asteroid turns, the night side releases the heat. The release can exert a small thrust, which can result in a change of direction. It can also accelerate or decelerate the asteroid's current speed. The National Aeronautics and Space Administration, NASA, most recent endeavor to collect a sample from asteroid Bennu is one of the ongoing initiatives to understand the influence of the Yarkovsky effect. The Apophis asteroid could hit Earth. The new observations we obtained with the Subaru telescope earlier this year were good enough to reveal the Yarkovsky acceleration of Apophis, and they show that the asteroid is drifting away from a purely gravitational orbit by about 170 meters per year, which is enough to keep it to the 2068 impact scenario in play, said Dave Throlin, co-author of the paper presented at the 2020 virtual meeting of the Division for Planetary Scientists or Sciences of the American Astronomical Society. It's not uncommon for small asteroids between the size of 5 to 10 meters to pass by Earth, but asteroids the size of Apophis are rare. Not only are they fewer in number, but they don't normally come this close to Earth. Before 2068 rolls around, Apophis is scheduled to visit Earth even sooner, on April 23rd, 2029. The massive 340-meter asteroid will be visible streaking across Earth's skies without the aid of a telescope or binoculars. That's a little chilling.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah. According to NASA, it's going to screw up my 101st birthday. That's all I got to say.
No.
According to NASA, even the close encounter may have an impact on Apophis, since it will only be 30,000 kilometers from the planet. Earth's gravitational field may impact the way the asteroid spins or result in a change on its surface. UFologist Michael Horn claims if Apophis were, in fact, to crash into Earth, the impact point would be somewhere over Europe. Dun, dun, dun. So, 2068. Maybe run up those credit cards in about 2067.
Yeah, I would. I mean, I'd start living the dream right now, my friend. Yeah.
All right. Listen, we do like to talk science on the show as well, Tim.
Yep.
Sometimes when we talk science, it goes over people. They get irritated. They tell us they want science. We bring somebody on with science.
And then slow down.
They don't listen.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're like,
my head.
Dave, just get back to telling scary stories. But sometimes science can save lives, Tim. I don't know if you know that about science.
I hear that it does, yeah.
So here's an important story that just came out again. It was released on October 30th, written by Leah Tierney. And I do think this is important, and I do want to read the story. That feeling when you're being haunted could just turn out to be carbon monoxide poisoning. Belief in the supernatural world beyond what we can observe has been part of human culture for millennia. While many have sought to prove the existence of paranormal entities, there is an alternate explanation that the phenomena is an internal experience. Experiences of paranormal contact occasionally include hearing or seeing inexplicable things, confusion, dizziness, weakness, and nausea. Perhaps more than coincidentally, these are also some of the most common symptoms of carbon monoxide poisoning. The confusion of carbon monoxide poisoning for spiritual hauntings was recorded in a 1921 issue of the American Journal of Ophthalmology by Dr. William Wilmer. Wilmer writes of the distress of his patient, Mrs. H., who tells him the troubles her family has been experiencing since moving into an older and decrepit house. Frequently using gas lights in the absence of electricity, Mrs. H. and her family began to be tormented by visions, voices, and physical illnesses. The family was petrified by the sounds of footsteps and moving furniture in empty rooms, and by sinister apparitions appearing in the dark. Mrs. H. and her family had unexplained fatigue, pain, and headaches for months. But this was not an isolated incident. In 2016, investigative journalist Carrie Poppy discussed a similar paranormal experience in her TEDx talk. Poppy described agonizing chest pain and a constant sense of dread. Despite seeing psychiatrists, calling ghost hunters, and trying to cleanse rituals, Poppy was still afflicted by the supernatural. In both cases, the seemingly paranormal activity was actually caused by carbon monoxide poisoning. In Mrs. H's house, the family's furnace was spewing carbon monoxide into the home instead of the chimney. Similarly, when Poppy made a call to her gas company, she discovered her home had a gas leak. Her symptoms had been caused by a near lethal amount of carbon monoxide inhalation. Carbon monoxide is a colorless, odorless gas that can be lethal if inhaled for prolonged amounts of time. Carbon monoxide is produced during the burning of gasoline, wood, propane, and other fuels, according to the CDC. The most common symptoms of carbon monoxide poisoning are headache, dizziness, weakness, upset stomach, vomiting, chest pain, and confusion. Or how I feel in my house every Sunday after watching a Vikings game. Carbon monoxide poisoning occurs when the gas is inhaled into the lungs and travels through the bloodstream. In the bloodstream, carbon monoxide bonds to the protein hemoglobin. Normally, hemoglobin. Normally, hemoglobin picks up oxygen molecules, which consist of two oxygen atoms, transporting them to the body's tissues for use. Hemoglobin carries oxygen just tightly enough that it can be released through the body as efficiently as possible. If hemoglobin's grip on oxygen is too loose, it won't hold on long enough for oxygen to get where the body needs it to go. However, if hemoglobin holds on to oxygen too tightly, then it won't let go of enough oxygen to supply the body. Unlike the relationship of oxygen molecules with hemoglobin, carbon monoxide, which contains a single oxygen atom, binds to the hemoglobin. Blah, 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 science. The lack of oxygen reaching the brain due to carbon monoxide poisoning can lead to numbersome symptoms, including the visual and auditory hallucinations behind some of real lifelike paranormal experiences. Hospital treatment for carbon monoxide poisoning includes breathing pure oxygen through a mask and, in extreme cases, the use of a ventilator, not a vibrator, Tim. I almost said vibrator.
Right,
totally different thing.
Yeah.
Another possible treatment, hyperbaric oxygen therapy, involves placing the patient in a pressurized chamber containing pure oxygen. So unless you really want a spooky Halloween, it might be time to double check your carbon monoxide detectors. So please do that. You got to check the science of your situation. And I know that sounds weird coming from Dave and Tim, but we are skeptical believers. And I have found locations where carbon monoxide and high electromagnetic fields have caused these hallucinations and disturbances. Once these things were taken care of, the paranormal activity subsided. So bear that in mind. But please, if you do start suddenly, and especially here with the winter months using your furnace, if you start developing a lot of these symptoms, have somebody come in, an expert come in and just check to make sure you don't have a leak. And make sure you do invest in those carbon monoxide detectors. They can save your life, and it is so important.
Oh, yes.
All right. Speaking of important, we love our listeners so much that we've given a phone number that they can call us anytime, day or night. They won't be able to call Tim at 612. Well, I'm just showing they can't call you at that number because you don't want me giving out that number.
Right.
612.
No, don't give it. Don't give it out.
Okay. Well, we do have a number we do give out. 651-300-4977. That's 651-300-4977. If you would like to call in and tell us your paranormal encounter, we'll play it on an upcoming episode. So when it prompts you, just tell your story. If your story is longer than the 3 minutes that the time allows, call back in, pick up where you left off, and Tim will needle these stories together and release them on the next program that we have. So if you want to call in, 651-300-4977 is the number, just like this caller.
Hey, boys. My name's Aaron. I'm calling from Nebraska. Kind of a newer fan here. I've been listening to a lot of your podcasts here from like August or till now from Spotify and iTunes. They're pretty cool. I got to say I'm hooked on most of them. Can't wait till you guys get Vampiro on. Hopefully Tim gets a hold of him. I watched him on WCW down in Mexico. Yeah, I heard something about him with the occult, so I'm I'm really excited to hear what he said after I heard on an episode recently here what Tim was saying about him. So can't wait for that. I'm calling to let you guys know about a story. It's not my story. It's supposedly a true story. There was a show called The Hairy Hand in Mexico. It was a radio show. I never heard it. I heard about it. And you can find this audio on YouTube. I'm sure you can Google it. Juan Ramon Sáenz was the host. He died mysteriously right after this case that I'm going to tell you guys about, which is just weird. And so this case is a phone call that like I said, you can find. There's several episodes that were recorded on YouTube. It's called The Strange Case of, or The Case of Josue, Josue. So this, Josue calls, Ramon and is, on the show, and he's, I think it's about an hour long or so. I don't know if it's two separate calls that they got in one recording on the show or on YouTube that you can find. I'm going to tell you this. You guys are going to find this story very interesting. It knocked me off my socks when I heard it. It's pretty creepy. So Josue's story goes that he was his family was sort of wealthy, doing pretty good in Mexico, and they bumped into had an economic crisis that was pretty rough. So him trying to help, he says that he came up with the book somehow from a demonic, a demon, occult book, I guess. It sounds like he's pretty studied in the occult, to do some rituals, a ritual book, to where he made a pact with a demon to help his family. He said he tried for about a year until he finally, after a year of nothing, he was ready to give up, and he had an apparition. Some guy in a suit, I believe he said. So he told him what his plan was or what he needed, and the demon told him basically that he needed a blood sacrifice, that he knew that a recent neighbor of his had just had a baby, and they wanted the baby. And Josue said that he was about to do it, he already had a plan to take the baby or kidnap him from this family, but then he backed off of it and he decided to offer his grandmother instead. So he confessed on the radio station that he murdered his grandma, that she was, already 80 some years old, and I guess he strangled her and he offered his grandma. How did he not get arrested or whatnot after saying that on radio? I don't know. And so they gave him the ring. This demon gives him a ring of, that I know nothing about. I think it's the King Solomon ring that he can control, or either he can control demons, or I don't know if it's a protection or something that he cannot take off. No matter how he tries, he can't take off his finger. And so he was explaining that this money was coming into his account every day, and he had to keep spending and spending. It was ridiculous amounts of money that he lived out in California, and he was spending every day. He didn't say how many thousands he did. But one day, he decided to help some homeless people with that money. When he got home, he was attacked by some demons because he's explaining this on the radio that he was to not help any. That money was not for any intention to help anybody or do anything good with it. He just had to spend it. So he's, you can hear him on the phone call. He's crying, he's shivering. This is an insane call. He said that there was a woman there with long black hair, a big mouth and teeth, and she had a white dress. She floated around because she had no feet, and she is holding a dagger in her hand, the shape of a cross with an eye painted or drawn inserted in the dagger. He said that he was told that when she appeared that this is when he was going to die. So he says, she's trying to attack me, and, I'm surrounded by all these demons, and he's crying. And I think it was in the second call or so that Juan Ramon Saenz brings in a priest, and the priest is telling him to, get some help, go to a church or get somebody that can help. And that's pretty much all they did for him. And so he hangs up, and that's the end of the call. So after a year or so, there was only a handful of good stories from what I heard on this radio show that were believable. The rest were probably, just like, people can call and say that they've seen goblins or the witches, the famous witches in Monterey and La Llorona that I'm sure that you guys are very aware of, and a bunch of other probably BS or whatever. But this one of the very few good cases. So Juan Ramon Saenz decides one time that he was in California, he said after a year that he heard nothing from Josue to I guess he somehow had gotten his address or had a good idea where he was staying at, and he stopped by. It said that he stopped by and went to the house, and some tall guy opened the door with a cat held on his hand and said he had no idea what he was talking about. So after that, he didn't give up. Somehow he got a hold of Josue after looking for him, I don't know after how long, and he agreed to do a TV show, a TV interview where I think they didn't show his face. I haven't seen the interview. And he explained everything that happened there on that interview. And this is where it gets kind of really weird also, because supposedly after this interview, I think it was 2 or 3 people died right after the interview. Juan Ramon Saenz died. I can't remember if it was within that same week or a couple of weeks. Two people died of mysterious stomach infections or something like that. 2 of them, I believe, and the other one had a car accident. And so 3 people involved with recording the interview passed away, or mysteriously, not too long after that. So yeah, that's really weird. I think it might have been around 2011 or so. And the rest is from Josue. I guess they haven't heard anything. No idea. But like I said, I didn't care to hear it a second time, but this is a really good story. I really think if you guys listen to it, I wouldn't be surprised if there's an app now where you can translate it from Spanish to English, or if you can have somebody translate it to you. telling you, this is a story well worth listening to. That I really think you guys are gonna be creeped out. Hope you guys listen to it. Like I said, you can probably Google it and find a translation way. Google some of it in other cases of La Mano Peluda, the hairy hand in Spanish, Juan Ramon Sainz, and like I said, the case is the case of Josue, Josue. I done a little bit of research. Nobody knows nothing about him till this day, but just the fact that the guys that did the interview passed away right after is probably just one of the weirdest things ever. So keep up the good work, guys. You got a new fan that listens here to your shows. I hope to listen to the new one, and like I said, hopefully you guys get a hold of Imperial and see what he says. I'm really interested on that one. And take care, man. Keep up the good work. See you guys around.
Wasn't that simple, Tim?
Oh, yeah.
A great story. We get to hear somebody else's voice instead of just me droning on. That's the stuff that gives Tim nightmares, folks.
What, the droning on?
Me droning on. Oh, so you can call in and tell us your story, 651-300-4977. Or if you insist on me reading it, you can email your stories to me, dave@darknessradio.com, and we'll read your tales or your emails or your questions right here on the show. Remember, if you'd like it to be featured in an upcoming Theater of the Mind, write it as a narrative, 2 to 3 pages long at the most, and not like super small type either, but 2 to 3 pages, and we will craft it into an upcoming Theater of the Mind. We'll begin airing those again in January. So you have spoken, we have heard, and as long as you respond in kind by writing some great, true supernatural encounters, we will record them and share those stories. All right, Tim, let's go to another email, shall we?
All right.
This email is entitled 3 Short and a Long. Hey, Dave and Tim. Holy cow. It's been almost 3 years since I first wrote to you with the promise of another story. I'm sorry it took me so long. I don't have much time to myself these days. The story I wrote to you was about a dream visitation from my dear old great-grandfather with the promise of stories from the strange things that happened while he was dying. Well, here are those short stories now. And just to make it up to you that it took me so long to send them in to you, I've included a bonus story, Tim.
Well, good.
Wow. Bonus stories. What do we do right? Good old Pandaroo wrote into us with all these stories.
Well, in all fairness, it took 3 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when you see, this is well written, but it's very, yeah, we'll get into it. Hold on. Are you ready?
Ready. Ready.
Here we go, Tim.
You okay?
My first story takes place in 2013 after my great-grandpa suffered from his first big heart attack. He had to stay in the hospital for a few days, and my uncles took turns sitting with him at night. His oldest son, Rob, had fallen asleep in the chair next to my grandpa. I have to quickly mention that about 6 years before this, my uncle lost a grandson. It was a sad time, as the baby boy was born very early and his short life was spent hooked up to tubes and machines. Anyway, back to Rob sleeping in the chair. He was awoken by the sound of a child's laughter. He opened his eyes to see a young boy about 6 years old run into the room and up to Grandpa's bed. Rob recognized this as his grandson that he'd lost and couldn't help but notice how the boy looked so much like his younger brother. The second story takes place in 2016 as my great-grandpa was dying. My great-grandpa awoke in the middle of the night, eyes wide, looking around his room. Then he tried to get out of bed, saying with such urgency that he needed to get to Parowan, a city in southern Utah. He kept saying over and over, I need to go to Parowan. The next morning, when he awoke, one of my aunts who was helping take care of him at the time asked how he slept. Terrible, he told her. There was a crowd of people in my room and I couldn't get them to leave. Something paranormal or the ramblings of an old man at the end of his days. You decide. Last short story is a special one. It takes place right before my great-grandpa passed away. My mother had an overwhelming feeling to call and tell him she loved him. At this point, my grandpa couldn't hold up the phone. My grandma had to hold it to his ear. As my mom talked, a tear rolled out of my grandpa's eye. He moved his mouth like he was trying to talk back to her, but he didn't have the energy to speak anymore. She was one of the last that got to say goodbye to him. They say that one of the last senses you lose when you die is your hearing. As promised, here's my bonus story. I warn you, it's quite long and is written out as a narrative. I was actually writing it to play on my podcast and thought maybe you would want to read it as well. After all, you put the call out to get more Theater of the Minds. Well, okay, Amanda, we'll take that challenge, and we will hold this story for an upcoming edition of Theater of the Mind, and we won't make you wait 3 years for it. Or will we? This is Matt from Texas. That's how this next email begins, Tim.
Okay.
I got some more stories. These from my oldest brother. He worked at a restaurant in Nacogdoches, Texas. It was called La Hacienda. It was built in 1908. From what he said, it had been used as a farmhouse before it was a restaurant. Yep. How many women did I impregnate with that voice right there then, Tim?
43.
Wow.
Yeah.
This house had 2 stories, as well as having I'll have you know, my wife thinks that I sound like the Nasonex bee when I do that.
What?
This house had 2 stories, as well as having a basement. I worked there when I was young, and it was quite big. Pardon me. He had said during his time running it, there had been several mediums and sensitives that had visited, and they had told him there were many spirits that dwelled in the house and restaurant. Sometimes when people would try to eat there, he had some walk out because of being touched or some other weird happenstance. One of the mediums had told my brother there was many children's spirits that were there because when the parents went to the fields to work, all the children would stay at the farmhouse so they could play and keep each other company. Good memories for these children. My brother said one time he was locking up one night, and he had drove home and was lying there wondering if he had locked the safe that night. He ended up driving back, and as he entered, he felt like he had interrupted something. The light was on over the piano. Everything was quiet, and he felt like all eyes were on him. He checked the safe real fast and got out of there. Another time, he said one of his managers was almost crying. He said he had heard kids talking upstairs, and there was no one there. He said, too, that if you left balloons in the restaurant, that a lot of times they would make it upstairs. Now, that would be easier on a regular flight of stairs, but these were half stairs that curved to the left. There was supposedly an old man's spirit there that some said it was the man who built it. They had gotten the impression he didn't like all the people in his house. My brother said sometimes in the morning you would come in and the television was on a station with kids shows, or radio upstairs would just turn on sometimes when people were walking by. One of the creepiest stories he had told me was how it was close to Halloween, and he was telling some customers of the spooky happenings. And later, when he started to close, the alarm wouldn't set, so he looked on the alarm box to see the problem area, and it was in the basement. There was a little access door, very small, that this house had. I guess it was to get pipes and things under the house, and kind of like a half door. First, he had to pull up the latch door to get into the basement. Then he had to walk down a dimly lit hall to look to see why the alarm won't set. So as he gets down the hall, he sees that little door is ajar. He can't get to it from the basement, so he has to pull his vehicle in front of La Hacienda, crawl under the porch at the night, or look to see why the alarm won't set. I jumped back at night and closed the small little door. He thinks the ghosts were playing a Halloween gag on him since he was talking so much about them. He said all the time he worked there, he never had a problem with that door except that one night. My brother had said before he had become the general manager at La Hacienda, he was running a place called Rita's. There had been a bartender there who had gotten killed and had a plaque on the bar to commemorate him since he was so well loved. He said every few weeks they had a scheduled time for pest control, and there was a man who came in to fog the place. The pest control man told him the next morning that he had his mask on and was bombing everything. He saw someone standing at the bar in a suit. He told the guy that he needed him to get out. The stuff was poison. He told my brother he could even see the water in his eyes. This guy just are out of a side door. The pest control man follows him out, and he was gone. Thanks, guys. You make the night shift just a little bit shorter, and that comes from Matt. Thanks, Matt. From Texas.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. Jeez.
Had a little problem over on the Drew Barrymore show, Tim.
Yeah?
Feels good to be alive, right?
Yeah.
And perhaps no one knows more about that than a former relative of Drew Barrymore's. Last week, a psychic appeared on Drew's talk show and began summoning relatives who had passed. Most of those who supposedly came through were relatives of her ex-husband, Will Kopelman. You are a part of that family. It doesn't matter that the two of you are not together anymore, psychic Anna Romaldi told a happy Drew. Drew welled up when Anna spoke of a deceased judge who came through, who Drew identified as David. Judge David Kopelman, however, is alive and well and living in Boston. Now Drew's ex is sounding off on the psychic. Drew and I have a close and highly amicable co-parenting relationship. I have and always will continue to cheer her on from the sidelines. That being said, the segment was a solid laugh considering my uncle, Judge David Kopelman, still very much alive, Will said.
Whoops.
And I'm a little surprised that Drew chose to give oxygen to someone like this. Because self-entitled mediums who prey on vulnerable, bereaved people with claims they can communicate with their dead loved ones in exchange for fame and compensation belong in jail. That's kind of harsh.
That's a little stiff, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. He goes on to say, none of my dead relatives, all of whom I'm sure would have really liked Drew, are speaking with some mental hack working the talk show circuit. This, I assure you. Following Will's unfiltered comments, a rep for Drew told Page 6 the grandfather of Will is Frank, who was a judge and is deceased. David is Will's uncle, who's alive and also a judge. That was the confusion. Anna, meanwhile, stands by her abilities, telling the publication, I felt a judge who has passed. Drew said David, I only felt a judge. That's a good point.
Yeah.
Drew filled in the blank.
Yeah, it wasn't the psychic.
Yeah.
No.
There's a judge here. Here come the judge. Here come the judge.
God.
What?
That wasn't the most PC thing you've said today.
There was a Flip Wilson bit. Here come the judge. Here come the judge. You don't remember that?
Yeah, it dates a little past Flip Wilson. He was doing a take on something earlier than that, but
I didn't know that. I just remember Flip Wilson. So I remember when I was a kid, I had a T-shirt that said, here come the judge with Flip Wilson on the front. Mm-hmm. So you're calling me a racist 6-year-old wearing a Flip Wilson T-shirt?
A little bit, yeah.
Is that what you're trying to say, Tim?
A little bit.
Step outside so I can slap you with my gauntlet.
I had a half Flip Wilson, half Geraldine doll too, but it was Geraldine on one side.
What'd you say, sucker?
Yeah, and you pulled the string and it talked like Geraldine.
Yeah. God. You know how many listeners right now have no clue what the hell a Flip Wilson is?
Yeah.
Sounds like a drink.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah. The name is Bond. James Bond. I'll take a Flip Wilson. Shaken, not stirred. How about that? We did lose one of my heroes. Sean Connery passed away. Kind of a bummer.
It was a big bummer.
Yeah.
Huge bummer.
A lot of death again this year. 2020.
2020 was a devastating year.
But I got to say this. 90 years old, not a bad way to go. Beloved by the world, had a pretty good life up until the last few years when your health started to slowly decline. When you hit the dementia stage, you're gone within a couple of months, according to his wife. I could think of worse ways to go. He died in Bahamas. Relaxed.
He lived in the Bahamas. The man had a pretty good life.
That's right, Tim. I certainly did.
Yeah.
It didn't start out as a business venture. Definitely didn't begin with grand ideas about human psychology and the paranormal or about flaws and acceptance. No. Unsettling Toys, established early in 2019 in Portland, Oregon, was created as a what if. As in, what if there was a matchmaking agency for unwanted toys? A ventriloquist dummy with a broken jaw? A bunny that moves from room to room on its own? A doll that came out of a box with a seemingly blood-stained dress? Even a haunted yo-yo, Tim.
Oh,
Unsettling Toys will take the offending object off your hands compassionately and hopefully permanently. If, in the very rare instances, a toy reappears in your home, the website promises we will remove it promptly. The idea for Unsettling Toys emerged spontaneously after Sarah Derrickson and her partner Brian Gilson attended a ghost conference in 2018. They weren't into ghosts. It just seemed fun. Energized by the conference, they got to dreaming. Last year, for Gilson's 50th birthday, Derrickson created social media accounts and had a logo design. Boom! They were in the misfit toy adoption business. Hey, I don't think you're allowed to use that because we own it. Rudolph talks about it all the time. Welcome to the land of misfit toys. Turns out there's a market for weird and used toys, even spooky, broken, and potentially possessed ones. Clients adopt these toys for $25 to $60, shipping and adoption certificate included. The lucky ones also come with a backstory. That's what Derrickson and Gilson are really after. They keep notes on each one. Some of the stories to tell. Unsettling Toys is a small-scale business. They were thrilled with the Halloween uptick when 9 dolls were adopted in a single day. They have perhaps 150 toys on hand, stored all over their homes. They're a couple, but they do not live together. The toys are donated by people who don't want them around for whatever reason. Before the pandemic, Derrickson and Gilson would remove them upon request from homes in the Portland area. Now they get packages from all over the country. Some of these toys would just be destroyed, Derrickson said. It's taking something that has already had one lifetime and giving it another one. You got a friend in me. It's a new Toy Story twist, Tim. I see it.
I'm still trying to figure out how you find out a yo-yo is haunted.
I don't know. Let's go on and see. It says you won't find a buy button on their website, but if you want a toy, you need to send a message. That's starting a conversation, Gilson said. These conversations reveal the stories, and that's what has been eye-opening for Derrickson and Gilson. At this point, neither intends on giving up their day jobs. Derrickson, 39, is a school psychologist. Gilson, 51, rare Cougar Town, intends to go back to bartending when pandemic restrictions left. Derrickson was into what she calls weirdo culture before they started the business, mostly cosplay and zombies. Gilson liked horror trivia. Neither knew quite what they were getting into when they began Unsettling Toys. One California mother contacted them about a doll that looked harmless with a cute face and long dark hair. Her daughter had received it as a present, but the girl kept having middle-of-the-night conversations with it, followed by nightmares. When the daughter announced she saw it walking down the hall, they sent the doll away and cleansed the home with holy water. It arrived at Unsettling Toys naked, wrapped in black plastic. Jeez, like a serial killer. Another set of dolls arrived after they freaked out a doll collector's dog. When the collector picked them up to dust, the dog went nuts, barking, nipping, spinning in circles. According to Derrickson's notes, could the dog have sensed something? More often, however, it's a duration rather than in the intensity, Derrickson said. A lot of people have been living with things they don't like and make them uncomfortable for a long time. Some of those are spouses, Tim, in case you didn't know that. Many of the toys, some broken or battered, were once important to someone. That's why they call each one a case. Here's the case of Two-Faced Adeline. In mid-2019, Derrickson was contacted by the son of a doll collector. According to her notes, he said all of the toys he inherited, Amelie, Adeline, were the most unsettling. He said their faces made him uncomfortable, but he did not elaborate. He brought them to Gilson, then abruptly left, which he said seemed strange. The dolls looked peaceful and pleasant until Derrickson began photographing them. In photos, lovely Adeline looks intense, even angry. Dee Jabrell, who lives near Temecula, how do you say it? Temecula. Temecula, California, saw the dolls online and adopted them. But first, she was full of questions. If the man who had dropped off the dolls didn't like them, why didn't he just put them in the trash? And what's with the speedy exits? To her, it was a clue. Dun, dun, dun. A lot of people don't want to talk about the paranormal because they're scared what other people will think, she said. She should know. Jabril, a retired insurance agent, co-hosts a paranormal podcast. Although she considers herself more investigator than true believer, one minute you're like, this is real, she said. Then your more logical side says, let's put the brakes on. She just loves the ambiguity. She adopted the dolls that freaked out the dog, too. I don't believe they could be haunted, she said, but I'm a little scared that they might be. Then there's the case of the staring Scarlet and the guilty daughter. Decades ago, Christine Wilson's mother gave her Scarlet, a porcelain doll wearing the green and white dress from the barbecue scene in Gone with the Wind. It was her mother's favorite movie, and she had one rule common among some doll lovers: to keep Scarlet pristine. You must never take her from the box. Wilson carted Scarlet around long into adulthood, and at some point she figured, what the heck, remove Scarlet from the box and propped her on the cabinet. Outside the box, Scarlet seemed odd. Wilson's husband would glance up and see her across the room staring at him. It's creepy, he told Wilson, although Wilson delighted in this. Then came yoga, which led to introspection. One day it hit her. She had to get rid of Scarlett. It wasn't her stare. She could no longer disconnect the toy from racism. She didn't want to throw away a parent's favorite gift, so she brought the doll to Derrickson. A few weeks later, Scarlett was also adopted. I've collected dolls my whole life, said Michelle Benson, who adopted Scarlett for $30. I don't buy them because they're worth money. I get them because I find them interesting. Benson, 51, who lives in Salem, Oregon, said she heard about Unsettling Toys through a friend's social media. I also adopted Harold, a little boy doll. Just the look on his face, I don't know, it's weird and interesting. Now, some people might think Harold's creepy. Oh, and Christopher, this little porcelain doll in pajamas that I thought was the most cutest, adorable thing. Scarlett's dress was dusty and dingy. Benson, who works at a dry cleaner, hand-washed it and put her on display. She placed Christopher next to an old clown doll with a broken laugh button. The clown had been silent for years. Benson swears when Christopher arrived in June, the clown perked up and found its wheezy laugh again. When she looks at her doll, she doesn't see Scarlett O'Hara, racist plantation belle. She doesn't see creepy. She sees a toy with an interesting look and a dress she cleaned and pressed herself. Ironically enough, the toys some people find creepy, they keep me sane in a way, she said. I clean and vacuum around them every week. I arrange them. How about that? Our final story, the case of the screaming baby. Wickley has a pinched face, his eyes shut tight, his mouth open and twisted. Penelope Hall Philbrick adores him. She also loves Annie, another doll that considers Wickley's twin sister. Hall Philbrick's own twin sister Bianca doesn't get it. She said, truth be told, some might say they're ugly. Derrickson and Wickley came from someone who was freaked out by him. Annie's original owner said she kept tipping over at weird times. Both owners were finally done with them. Hall Philbrick may be the only scary doll collector who has named South Carolina rookie wrestling state champion in the 64-pound weight class. She's 7 years old, creative and very energetic. She loves horror movies. At age 7? I'm fine with that, she said. Her mother, Amy Philbrick, says it's kind of sweet. Philbrick said she stumbled upon Unsettling Toys online about a year ago and bought 3 dolls for a total of $70. Penelope tucks them into bed with her at night. She covers them up, Philbrick said. She has a high chair. I mean, she really plays with these dolls just the way they are. Unsettling Toys offers new ways to look at old things, all of their imperfections, their stories, their power. You can have 5 people look at the same doll, and it's almost like they're putting their energy on it, Jilson said. They're getting what they want out of it. A man from California sent photos of his dolls to Unsettling Toys and wanted to know if a particular one of their dolls would fit with them. He asked, can you show these pictures to the doll and see if he'd like to join us? Cuckoo, cuckoo. Oh. Other clients bring along psychics when they're looking at dolls over Zoom. Derrickson recalls one psychic asking the toy questions, then silently reflecting before commenting and recommending adoption. It's been glorious, Derrickson said. Every time someone reaches out, we learn a little bit more about people's beliefs and the world. One of the couple's favorite toys is an old ventriloquist dummy. The elastic in his jaw is stretched so far that his tongue is hanging out of his mouth. He would be repairable, Derrickson said, but I kind of like him just the way he is. Oh, somebody play with me. I've got this article up so you can go see all the creepy dolls and see the ventriloquist doll with the tongue hanging out. There's a lot of weird dolls. You know, here's the deal, folks. P.O. Box 22321. That's P.O. Box 22321, Eagan, Minnesota 55122. If you have creepy old toys you want to get rid of, send them our way. We're always willing to take your haunted crap. I'll wrap them in holy bubble wrap, put them in my garage. Maybe we'll sell them for charity in the future. Or you can contact Disjointed Toys, or what's it called? Not just
Disjointed Toys. We'll knock the joints right out of them.
Toys, that's it. You can check out Unsettling Toys for yourself and maybe bring home a new. They've got like all these dolls nailed to the wall. Like that makes it even more chilling, to be honest with you. But we'll have that article up so that people can go and take a look at these dolls and maybe find one to adopt for themselves. All right, our final story is here, Tim. Need an exorcist for your haunted house, Tim?
My house isn't haunted, but sure.
For those people that think their house is haunted, it won't hurt your chances of selling it, right? Well, think again. That's according to a new study from iBuyer company isoldmyhouse.com, which shows that 61% of survey respondents said they would not buy a house if they thought it was haunted. Nearly 1 in 5 survey respondents said they have consulted with a priest or psychic about a supernatural occurrence, and 9% of those who'd had an encounter with a spirit said it was aggressive. Got ghosts? No problem, says the company, which launched a new exorcism service for those needing to rid themselves of a paranormal house guest. With technology and camera quality getting better and better, it's no wonder that people are managing to capture evidence of potential paranormal activity, such as, I think it's a no wonder, this is poorly written, such as, I think it's also no wonder that there is an increasing number of people who believe in ghosts, spirits, and the like. isoldmyhouse.com founder Chris Lippy said in a press release, the service includes a video consultation from a paranormal advisor with advice on how to get rid of the home of ghosts and other supernatural entities. Trying to sell a house can be a stressful life event at the best of times, let alone when adding the possibility of a house being haunted into the mix. I hope this new service can really help to put people at ease and will continue to make house sales quick and easy for our customers, Lippy said. So if you think you've got a haunted house, Tim, isoldmyhouse.com, I guess, offers exorcisms if you think you got a ghost in there. How about them apples? You like them apples, Tim?
I guess they're pretty good apples if my apples are haunted.
Yeah, have a bite. Have a bite. That's it, really, for today's show, Tim. I could go on, but I can't because there's really no more stories to read. But we are going to be back tomorrow, Tim. And we have got one hell of a show. Sorry. I'm a little verklempt. We're going to be talking with Jim Hunt. That's right. We're going to encounter wandering wraiths, pesky poltergeist, and unwanted attachments. Jim Hunt is a very popular medium that's been featured on TV and sought-after personality and a person adept at removing problem spirits. Tomorrow, Jim will share insight into his work, share some of the stories of helping spirits to move on, and give advice on how to deal with your own paranormal attachments. That's tomorrow. Make sure you tune in and spend another day here in the darkness on the edge of town on the best paranormal talk radio there is. This is Darkness Radio.